So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to our webinar session today. My name is Saron and I'll be hosting today's webinar. So to give you a little background on Enliten, we are a sustainability focused solution integrator company. So we create a variety of health and well-being solutions around people's health, productivity, and engagement. And our team expertise and background ranges from engineering, environmental science, and human biology. So currently we've been working with schools and other organizations to engage their community using AI technology, which brings us today to today's topic of emotional intelligence technology. And I'm really excited to present you your speaker today, who is Lana Novikova. She's the founder and CEO of Heartbeat AI. And just to let you know, this session will be recorded and it will be available later on. So without further ado, I'll give it to Lana. She can tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in sustainability and sustainable living.
Thank you, Saran, and thank you for Enliten to invite me to do this workshop. And you might hear some bird chirping and occasional dog barking and maybe roosters on the background. And that's because I'm calling from Nicaragua, from the Pacific coast of Nicaragua. That's where I live now. And I live here and run Heartbeat AI, which is a technology company, a software company that we started 5 years ago and built into a beautiful platform with the objective to measure human emotions, a wide range of human emotions. Like I said, my name is Lana Novikova, and a little bit about myself. I've been in market research and analytics since 2000, so I'm that old. And so I've been in research from the days when we used to collect data using paper surveys. You know, you would ask a lot of close-ended questions and about anything, about the product people use, about experience with insurance company or bank and so on. So everything was on paper. And then then you wait, you mail those surveys, you wait, and then the data comes back in boxes, and then we send it to typing. So people type and the data comes in, and that's what was my job, to analyze that data. And I used to sneak in open-ended questions in those, And so when you get those envelopes, you open a survey, people fill out the survey, and then they attach a whole page of answers of their stories. And the stories, some of them beautiful stories, very authentic, very honest stories, the stories that get you, goosebumps on your body. And as an analyst who is quantitative, I'm not supposed to feel goosebumps, but I did. And so I always were interested in understanding what drives humans, what drives human decisions. And because my background was communications and quantitative research, I didn't know much about psychology. So rolling back a few years, forward a few years, I joined Nestle ice cream to run research on ice cream for a few years. I was there, and then I learned how important it is to understand human emotions in order to understand why people do what they do, why they eat what they eat. And in order to create a very good product, a very good experience, one needs to understand the deep emotions. And that led me to leaving corporate world and going back to school to study psychotherapy, psychology, and a little bit of affective neuroscience. Affective neuroscience is the field of neuroscience that deals with a part of the brain that moderates, generates, and focuses on emotions. So that was my field, and for 2 years I ran a psychotherapy practice in order to listen, to understand how human express emotions under stress. I worked in a hospice care a little bit as a volunteer to sit with people who are dying, and they know they're dying, and that's a lot of emotional material that comes in. And so learning all that and being with people in their emotional turmoil made my heart grow from a corporate researcher to now a person who tries to help, right? But at the same time, it's very difficult. You think it's, to sit with one person at a time, and I didn't have enough tools, so I burned out. But as a psychotherapist, but I had this idea of bringing emotional intelligence and understanding emotions into technology to scale it and to help researchers like myself back when I was manually analyzing data, and researchers today, and maybe even help people to understand patient's experience or student experience. So for that, we built Heartbeat AI, built just from a very simple prototype of putting words and phrases that express emotions in English, and then coding them into 100 secondary emotions, what I call it fine-grained emotions. So we measure 20 kinds of joy and 15 kinds of anger and 13 kinds of fear and so on. So this is a wide range of emotions.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, all other tools measured just positive, negative, like humans are binary, and some tools measured 5 key emotions. I decided to go all the way and measure all of them, all of the ones that we can name. So that was different, and how we express, how we showed emotions was different too. We tried to take it out of the binary world, positive, negative world, out of the quantitative world. So yeah, and now it's a history. I won a competition in Europe, and we got amazing clients like Unilever Global. Unilever, for example, and now, so we have global presence around the world. We're still very small, but we have an amazing team of 11 people, and that makes me so proud to have that.
Yeah. That is an amazing journey, how you went from just strictly quantitative to now exploring all the holistic view of employees or people and to identify emotions. So what was the problem or the gap that you identified or that sparked the idea to start Heartbeat AI to establish your company?
Let me share my slides, and then because I wanted to show, let me know when you see the slides.
Sure.
Yeah, it works.
You can see it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So why we're doing it? Like I said, in order to scale capacity, right? The capacity, the human, like you have and I have a capacity to understand other people's emotions and to feel them, and a capacity of empathy or emotional intelligence. But in order to scale that, so it's not just you and I, but it's, everybody could be understood. Technology is the perfect weapon for that. I mean, weapon is the wrong word, the perfect tool for that, right? The weapon, unfortunately, so it's a slip of the tongue. So in here, I wanted to use technology as a tool for good. And artificial intelligence now is gaining the bad reputation, and fairly so. And that's a different topic of conversation. But here I'm talking about the artificial intelligence in service of humanity, in service of professionals who otherwise would have difficult time scaling, performing their analytics, for example. Imagine reading 12,000 comments of employees. It's humanly impossible, right? But machine can do it in seconds. So here's this quote that is very inspiring. So without technology, humanity has no future. And it's from Dalai Lama. So we do need technology, but it's our responsibility to bring technology and make sure it's not it's not mechanical. And so we still have humans and use technology in service of us. So we call it augmented artificial intelligence. Let's see. Okay, there. Step back for a second, just a quick definition of emotional health and emotional well-being, and then I'll show you the tool and I'll give you examples of how we use the tool. It's these words, empathy, emotional health, emotional well-being, emotional intelligence, are used interchangeably. So here, let's just agree that the quality of emotions that you experience defines your emotional health and emotional well-being. The problem is, and we know that emotions drive decisions. We know that each time you go to vote at election booth, it's your emotions that help you decide, that drive you to that decision. We know each time you buy something, it's emotions that do it. And from marriage proposal to buying a condo to moving to a new country like myself, it's a very emotional decision. But measuring those emotions, like I said, in a quantitative way is a catch-22. So that's why we use different types of data. Like I said, quantitative data is one way to do it. And an example of quantitative data is, please tell me how you feel about, Toronto weather today on a scale from 0 being the worst experience to 10 being the best experience. That's a quantitative data when you just give a number, click. And if I ask you a question, please tell me how you feel about the weather today, and you will express it in words, that's a text data. It's a language data. So Heartbeat uses the language. Then we bring quantitative data to see metadata, we call it. We see breaks, female, male, gender, country, and so on. And that becomes very contextual, very beautiful way of showing the data. So we measure emotions on a more advanced level than other companies do, because we only focusing on that. When you focus on something, one thing, you got to do it really good. And you're really passionate.
Yeah.
So some
for sure.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No problem. You've been describing it so beautifully. You mentioned meta filters. So just to give our audience a little bit background. So what can the emotional technology software do with meta filters, and what are you able to do with that data that you get and analyze?
Let me quickly show you a demo. There's so here's the live dashboard of Heartbeat, and I'll just give you quickly background. So this data, so you see it as 400 responses. How many words in the data? So we take those open-ended survey responses and some metadata. Here we have gender, male, female, age, geography. So this is what's called metadata. This is Canadian data from a couple of years ago, and we asked general representative population of Canadian citizens how they feel about the mental health of your generation in Canada, and how you feel about lifetime financial security of your family and in your family. So those are the two open-ended questions. That's how they represent it. And here you see here is a dashboard. We're actually very open box dashboard. So you see every word and phrase that your responders gave, good, and so on. So you see how open it is and how we find emotional words and phrases and code them into primary and secondary emotions. So just the background. So, and you see top words, you see sentiment, positive, negative, neutral. But here's what differentiates Heartbeat is that we measure emotions like body scent, indifference, disgust, anger, fear, sadness, surprise, trust, joy, and love. And inside those emotions, we measure secondary emotions. It looks like that. So then the data, when the data comes, it actually can come in real time. For example, this is survey, so survey needs to be uploaded. But say if you have an app like WhatsApp or Telegram, and you would be texting how you feel about a particular subject, the data goes straight live into the dashboard through our API. And I think that's the future of research in many fields, that live pulse research in real time, where you can see what's going on. And imagine scaling it across the world, asking millions of people how they feel about different topics and showing that data in real time. That's my dream, actually, of scaling. So you see here the answers to survey, and that's how, there we go. Let me show you quickly percentage label. So here you see the answers of how people feel about emotional health and how people feel about financial security. You see that there's positive emotions, and those are more negative emotions. And it's interesting, it was actually surprising in the study that people, especially millennials, were more concerned about the mental health. And this data was a few years back. I'll show you, actually, let's look at age breaks. Here, how you do it. But just look at millennials. Right. So you see how concerned they are about the mental health, and they're fine with financial health. If we were to run this data now, it would be probably even more negative picture.
And it's so important that you mentioned, the mental health, because especially at this time with the whole pandemic. So what are the links that can be drawn between understanding emotional intelligence and improving mental health?
It's huge. It's a big subject. So links are obvious. The tools are lacking, and maybe sometimes the will is lacking, or the knowledge. I feel like, why wouldn't governments measure emotional well-being on a big scale, and that inform different
Mhm.
organizations and inform institutions, and bring that very solid, good quality data into education, into healthcare, into social justice, into all the fields. I mean, that if it was my choice, it would
Right.
be that way. But for now, it is what it is, and different institutions
Mhm.
have to take initiative, like you guys have to take initiative to find resources and to bring those resources into your clients and to help
Right.
clients.
Right.
Once you have a tool like that, the rest is education. It's learning. It's, it looks complex, but once you use the tool like that a few times, you become very fluent, and it's actually fun to use
Right.
it. So we want to make it fun. And in terms of emotional well-being, I'll just give you,
Mhm.
there's a just research just released that in China, since pandemic, the emotional well-being of citizens went down 74%. It's huge.
Mm.
It's huge decrease.
Right.
And they probably measured
Yeah.
it just in a quantitative way. Imagine,
Mhm.
and that leads to it, a lot of stress and burnout and mental health issues. And we know that mental health used to be number 3 reason of premature death, I think, and suffering. And that's the World Health Organization, was after cancer and heart attack. So
Mhm.
we need to really watch mental health and really measure it at scale. So that's
Yeah.
my strong belief.
For sure. And we've been also using Heartbeat AI surveys for our schools to see what families and staff members and faculty members feel about the reopening. And that just little survey was able to kind of discover through that how the different emotions they felt. So it was also eye-opening to see that. So you've mentioned why understanding fine-grained emotions is important. So what are some examples of institutions or stakeholders who have used emotional intelligence and the value they've gained from that?
That's a great question, and I wanted to show you actual data, what it looks like, and
Mhm.
then the insights and recommendations that we would derive from that data. So these
Perfect.
are the comments from employees of a large telecom company. I won't
Mhm.
name the company, but and it's right after, I think the data was collected in April, so it's about COVID. And then
Mhm.
you see there were thousands of those comments. So the first one is talking about how thankful the person is that the company supports people and provides devices and provides assistance. So people, the company, they feel that the company is protecting them in the COVID situation, and that's a sign of a very strong company, strong management. And the second comment talks about stresses that COVID brings, and even more stresses that business agenda brings, and that when you're in between two, it's very hard. So again, you see those data. We quantify those 12,000 comments into emotions here. You see how
Mhm.
much joy, and then like I said, in filters, we can slice and dice and see which division is doing well, where maybe somewhere there's a manager with very low emotional intelligence, and that's the worst thing that could happen in this time. And then what if you notice that a particular division is anxious and more stressed than others, and that's because we know the why. We will see actually the why in a data. They will talk about the manager, right? And then if we know that the choice of the C-suite of the management is to provide extra training for the manager to handle their division in a better way. So you see how quickly you get from data to recommendation to actually action. And that's why we've been working
Right.
with this telecom company for many years. And here's, I'll just quickly show you recommendation. It's like strictly directly from the report. So
Mhm.
we not only quantify emotions, but we also pull the themes. And this is manual work. but it's worth it because it's I mean, we haven't computerized it. It's the next level of artificial intelligence when computer will bring those themes and topics
Right.
to. But for now, say we found four big themes throughout the organization about the first one is interesting. So here on one side you have COVID, and all the stresses, people work from home, organizations that support people working from home, and that leads to productivity improvements. Who would have thought, right? I mean, people spend less
Mm.
time driving in traffic, stress. It's Toronto, so driving in the snow and so on.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. You see, that's like a silver lining, you know. So themes
Yeah.
like that, and then the themes like self-care and desire for more training and so on. So those themes are pulled, and then at the bottom you see suggestions and recommendations. So
Hmm.
it's very strategic. It's actionable, and we would give it to every division. So it's not generic. You know, it could be very focused, and we can derive
Hmm.
data from one. I mean, not from one. Probably you need 10 responses, and 100 responses will give you more solid quantitative read, and 1,000 responses will give a very wide feel of what's going on in your
Right. Right.
organizations. So it's
Yeah.
really a powerful way of looking at the data.
For sure. And when it comes to designing the questions and the surveys, how much of that is done only by Heartbeat AI, and how much of it is designed by the organization you're working with or the stakeholders you're working with?
We view it as partnership and a learning opportunity. You know, I'm a professional in survey research and design, but only you know your organization. Only you know your people and what's the best way to start the conversation with these people. So we would work together. And if you have existing survey and you open to you know, little improvement and learning, we can work through that. If you don't have a survey, you want to start something new, we can build something from scratch, but that's a part of what we do, and we do it
Right.
for our partners, and that pays out. And I love sharing the knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. And lastly, just you've touched on how emotions can lead to actionable plans and strategies for various organizations. So, how about specifically the role of positive emotions and influencing the decision making and informing a more sustainable action or creating a positive vision for whatever organization you're working with?
It's especially important now, I would say, and not as an analyst, but as an ex psychotherapist. You think when you're going through
Mm.
stressful times and people around you, you know, the world is going through stressful times, and sometimes it feels like we're spinning down and we're losing energy, and the capacity of the brain to process the information in the stressful time diminishes, because, you know, 80% of the brain could be running the anxiety program right now, right? And so how
Mhm.
important it is to bring hope, to bring joy. And we're talking just the basic. Let's start with the basic safety. You know, feeling
Mhm.
at peace, waking up is a positive emotion, you know. And then, you know, you're starting there, and you know, we can talk about meditation and how that brings positive emotion, but
Mhm.
understanding that, you know, right now we need positive emotions, and everybody has a different positive emotion that they need to wake up and to go into the day. You know, and some organizations measure trust. It's very important, and they build trust, and it's all about trust. And some joy and fun, and, you know, we're talking about the range, but it's very important to bring it, to cultivate it like you would cultivate a garden.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's so important, especially at a time like now. So if any of you guys in the audience have any questions, feel free to send it on the chat. We will have a quick Q&A session as well at the end. So feel free to throw in any questions, and Lana will be happy to answer them. Yeah, you may be able to continue with any examples or ideas you want to end off with.
um, I'm dreamer in many ways, and one example of my dreaming is that I actually left Toronto, came here to Nicaragua to build an eco village for you know, just like we we built a prototype of Heartbeat 5 years ago when nothing like this existed. And today it's a tool that many big companies use, and they don't even question, why measure emotion. What I want to build here a prototype of tech eco-village where people will live together and share resources and share knowledge and bring the best of themselves into that community and create the governance system to facilitate the community resource, to bring resources together. So that's my dream, and connecting that to technology like Heartbeat and other technologies that can measure and help us share resources, and then many eco-villages, many communities can connect in that way. That's my vision. I wanted to end with that because that brings us back to sustainability. I believe that if you're tech entrepreneur, it's still your responsibility to think about sustainability of the earth, of this planet we're in. We're not going to be in the cloud, even though my software is on the cloud, we're here right there on the ground. And I think there's nothing more important as a mother or entrepreneur, professional, a human, that to bridge both the best of technology with the best of humanity.
Amazing. Yeah, both go hand in hand, and the fact that you address both through Heartbeat AI and also creating the eco village in Nicaragua is an amazing example, and I hope everyone can take away that message, if anything at all. And now I'm gonna give it away to the participants. If anyone has any questions, feel free to add it to the chat, and we'll answer them now.
So first of all, Lana, that was beautiful, very inspirational, and it's great to hear your story. And we have one question from Joseph. Has the Heartbeat AI software been compared to any traditional quantitative surveys on mental health and well-being? Do positive and negative emotions closely correlate with self-related mental health and well-being?
It's a great question. I would love to participate in a study, and I could act for for academic institutions. We would offer the software use for free if you have a study in mind. I've been thinking about it, and we actually had a little pilot few years ago with mental health in a setting of rehab, alcohol and addiction rehab in Ontario. And we collected the data daily about how people feel going through rehab for 30 days. So it was very good data. It was not enough data to do a study that you're talking about. But at the moment, we are absolutely ready to participate in a study. And I would make it priority if you can think of how we can collaborate. And then going further, you said the correlation of or close-ended or quant measures with the open-ended measures. We've done that in a different setting, not in a mental health. We've done it in politics, in predicting elections. Yes, which elections was 4 years ago. So we managed to correlate quantitative traditional measures with open-ended measures using machine learning model called random forest. So that advanced model helped us build a predictive model for elections. So we managed to predict elections in 4 states, in the states, was swing states. A very, very close prediction. So it's very technical, and I would love to discuss that maybe on in a different session, but that I'm very excited about that capacity that machine learning will bring into this understanding mental health at a scale.
Amazing. And we have one other question from Rahwa. As much as the focus of therapy is healing through professional and personal relations, I wanted to know if the software could open doors to popularize the use of AI for online therapy sessions.
Another great question. I put the last slide because here you have my email address, and please reach out and we can start this conversation. Another great opportunity, we've been thinking about it. Heartbeat for 4 years have been focusing on, well, we are not funded, we're a bootstrap company. So we were focusing and working with corporate clients to build better software. So mental health was a dream. but we haven't done much work in it. We're ready to do the work in it, and particularly in apps for mental health. What could happen on the back? You probably know many apps exist for mental health, and many of them don't use the data that we specialize in using. So it would be an app where you can rate your state, for example, in the morning, how you feel, and then measure stress. But those measures are very shallow. So a heartbeat API can plug into any app like this, because we have API is it's kind of a kind of generic way to pour data from one app through Heartbeat back into the app. So imagine we would enhance any app with understanding of emotions that I was talking about. So would love to collaborate, would love to test, work with partners on that. So if you have any ideas, please reach out, and we can test like literally in a week. It could start running a prototype, and then we can improve, build models, and so on. I have lots of ideas about it. We can do another workshop just about mental health and ideas.
Yeah, for sure. And that could be our next session of a webinar.
That would be great.
And maybe any other questions?
Yeah, Lana, it's Brian Duarte here. I was curious a little bit more on the eco village you're creating. I mean, you talked a little bit on sustainability and how you're trying to incorporate technology into sustainability. One of the things I always see is, we take some of these projects and we're doing it in places like Nicaragua. So my first question would be, why Nicaragua? And then from what you're learning there, what do you see that would be applicable back into North America, back into, say, in here into Canada?
It's a really good question. Why Nicaragua? I just posted a very small personal story on LinkedIn. So if you can go on LinkedIn, you'll see it. And it's a story why I ended up dreaming about this, building an eco village in Nicaragua. I only came here in March. First time I came in January, really fell in love with this country and decided to come in March. And then we got locked down on COVID. So 6 months after lockdown, on the third month, I decided, okay, this is where I want to build a village, because it's absolute paradise in the weather, and because because practical reasons. I've been trying for 2 years to find funding to build an eco village in northern Ontario. Not northern, it's in North Frontenac actually, and I have a website about it. So trying to find funding, and we didn't. If a project, big capital project like that in Ontario, very expensive, and it takes a lot of time, even zoning. Imagine you buy land, like here I bought 125 acres of land, and I can literally start building tomorrow, start building homes, eco homes. In Canada, it's a different story. I probably won't have to, better that, from the time you buy the land to the time you rezone the land to the time you get all the permits, it might take a few years. So expense and time. My heart is in Canada, and once we build a prototype here, and if it works, then the next stage would be finding funding to scale that, to bring it back to Canada. My children live in Toronto. Hopefully you'll come and visit me here. But it's easier and faster to do something like this here, to test it, and then bring it to North America. Yeah. So starting. I'm a tech entrepreneur, so I want to go easy and fast.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to be easy. Of course it's not. And it's a very different system here, a different mental system. And my background, I didn't tell you, I was born and raised in the Soviet Union, in a very communal, in a co-op world where people share resources. And that's one good thing about being raised in the Soviet Union. Well, a lot of bad things about it. But that's it's almost like we want to and redesign the mentality, the how people relate to each other and relate to the earth, and how we use resources together. So I want to build it here, and talk about it, maybe make a documentary about it, and then bring it to North America. Absolutely.
Thank you for that answer. I mean, I understand that totally in terms of the regulations you have to go through here in the North American environment, and that's where we're hoping, using things like the Heartbeat AI software that gives a picture to what emotions people are feeling about certain topics and certain ideas, that we can influence government. You know, specifically today we're talking on mental health, but yes, you know, tomorrow it's, I mean, as a company, our focus is more on sustainability as well. So that, you know, getting that attention to it using tools like Heartbeat AIs is, we see is so critical and so important.
Absolutely. And measuring well-being at the level of the country instead of, or in addition to measuring the GDP. If we measure money, we'll get money. If we measure well-being, we'll get more well-being. What we measure grows. And I can't stress enough. And actually, there's 3 countries in the world now, which is Scotland, New Zealand, and Iceland. All 3 are led by women. And they formed a partnership of bringing GDP out of the top measure of the country's health. So they want to bring subjective well-being as the most important measure of health. So imagine living in a country that decides to measure how you feel instead of how much money you make.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know there's one other country, I don't know if it's Nepal, but in that region that also did that as well. I think they were one of the leaders in doing that in terms of just no longer just measuring GDP. So.
Exactly. It's Bhutan. I think they've been measuring
Yes.
happiness for
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
One other question we had was from Jalil Ajmer. And with that question, he was wondering if you had a school within your eco-village, and if you did, what are you teaching, like specifically within these schools?
Like again, right now I just have land and lots of ideas. I don't even have a bridge over the river. I have a river on the land. But yeah, I thought about schools, and I looked at the models of schools across the world. Finland have a beautiful education model. Canada, Ontario, both my daughters went through public school system in Toronto. I believe it can be improved greatly. And I went through the Soviet system of education, very strong academically, very tough on emotion, on the emotional well-being. But there's a few interesting models like Waldorf and Montessori. There's a few interesting models. And in the eco-village, because the eco-village, one of the objectives is land restoration. I have about 50 acres of clear-cut forest in the land. So and with the very depleted soil. So imagine you have this lab right there. You have depleted soil, and you have, say, a school where half of the curriculum could be spent outside experimenting how you can restore that soil. Split. Back to research. You can split that land into different parts, and plant one crop here and another crop there, and bring goats here and cows here and chickens, and see how fast we can restore that topsoil. And if students, if those are children of the future, if they're with their hands working with the soil and learning that way, powered by artificial intelligence, imagine the children we will bring up into this world. So that would be probably a more on the extreme side. Lots of outdoor education, lots of international knowledge from different cultures, because it's about time to bring different cultures and be equal. And again, another topic of conversation, we can talk forever, but I love that. And yes, one of the most important projects will be education, because where I'm building, it's one of the poorest area of Nicaragua. It's called Matagalpa. And the level of poverty is very, very extreme. And the level of education is, even though education is offered for free, people send children to fields to grow beans, or to streets to beg, not to schools. And that's the problem. So another problem to solve.
For sure. Thank you for that. That was, you really tied in together both sustainability and the emotion and the importance of land restoration and how it all goes in together. Also, Enliten, we're working with schools and other companies to utilize these tools and to create, better interpreting surveys to help them create better vision, a better plan, and better strategy, both on the mental health side and also on creating a more sustainable education. So it was very informative, and thank you for that. And if anyone's interested in learning more about Lana and her life story, her journey, I'll also link her blog post for you guys to learn more about it. And all her email and the site is also attached here, so feel free to stay in touch. And if you don't have any other questions, I guess we can wrap it up from here. No other questions? All right. I've linked a blog post from Lana, so feel free to check it out. And yeah, stay tuned for more webinar series in the coming weeks. I will let you know. Feel free to check out our Instagram and stay tuned. And I guess take care, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, Lana. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And
Thank you so much. I
bye.
hope we'll continue the conversation. Bye.
Bye. See you.